I'm Leah Couture. I graduated from Goucher in '07. I graduated in biology, but I actually went there thinking I was going to major in English and economics, and then had a big swing to biology and did a lot of research in the chemistry department. I ultimately wound up going to medical school at University of Maryland, and then from there I headed down to Richmond, Virginia for a few years to do residency and actually practice as a hospitalist before going back to do some training in palliative medicine. And then I decided I needed to come back to Baltimore. So I am at Union Memorial, right near the Hopkins campus downtown. And I am the medical director of palliative medicine at Union Memorial, which mostly I'm the medical director because there aren't a lot of palliative doctors. And so I'm the only palliative doctor here. Easy to be number one when there's only one. And back to living pretty close to Goucher. A little bummed I can't see the campus right now.
So are you originally from Baltimore, or did you move back because you found it while you were at Goucher and decided you really liked it?
Well, I'm from Maryland, from Anne Arundel County, but I went to Goucher, of course, and then I lived in Baltimore for a year in between Goucher and medical school, and then lived in Baltimore during medical school. So I think I spent about a total of 10 years in Baltimore, and really grew to like it a lot. And I have two little kids, so we wanted to bring them back to Maryland too, to be with grandparents. So
I'm from Maryland as well. I live on the Eastern Shore, so I totally understand wanting to be in this area. I'm definitely attached to it as well.
Good state, best state flag too.
It is, we have the best state flag by far. So you said earlier that you came to Goucher thinking you were going to do English and economics. I'm actually an economics and business major, so I love econ. What made you, that's a crazy change of heart, and especially because I know that the biology program is really quite strict and you need to complete a lot of things in a short amount of time. How did you navigate that?
I was very, it was fortuitous and pretty lucky. So my freshman roommate actually was intending to be pre-med. I think in most freshman classes, probably like 20 or 30 people think they're going to be pre-med, and then like 3 people apply to med school by the end. So she thought she was going to do pre-med, and she was in the chemistry and the biology class and having a hard time with chemistry. And so I sat down and just like looked at her book with her one day. I wasn't in any science classes my first semester, and I really liked it. And so I wound up talking to, I don't think she's there anymore, but Esther Gibbs was one of the chemistry professors for freshman chemistry. And I asked her if I could just come to the second semester of the class. Like I couldn't enroll because I didn't do the first semester, but just come. And she said, sure, why not? So I sat through and took the exams, and it went well. And they actually allowed me to continue that way. And so I kind of jumped into the curriculum a little late, but it worked out. So it was a kind of a fortuitous and surprising change.
Yeah, it's definitely completely unexpected, and really glad they let you continue after you did well in that class. You didn't have to spend an extra year on top of the med school that you ended up going to. Because it's a lot of years of school. So how did you, so I guess you knew at that point you wanted to do chemistry. Was your thought at that point, oh, I definitely want to go to med school, or did something sort of make that change as well?
Yeah, I am somebody who sort of makes some impulsive, maybe last minute decisions. So I loved chemistry. I actually did research with Scott Sibley, who I think is still there.
I think he is. I think he's a provost of something at this point.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll have to find him on LinkedIn or something and congratulate him. I did research in chemistry and physical chemistry and really loved that. I'm not sure if there are any PChem people on. It's a small group, but I thought I might want to do a PhD, but a lot of my friends were studying for the MCATs, and I figured, whatever, I'll just study for them and see. And so I, again, impulsively took the MCAT exam. And then because I knew so little about what med school meant, I said, well, I spent so much money on the MCAT, I should go to med school now. And wound up just deciding to apply to med school, and decided to go, not realizing that the MCATs were really a drop in the bucket of the cost of a medical education.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it wound up being the right choice for me, though. I loved medical school. I think my experience at Goucher with kind of the interaction of science and discovery and how it affects people kind of drove me into more of that direction. So it wound up working out really well.
That's very cool. I'm glad that even though it was a bit of just last minute decisions, it really worked out wonderfully for you and you seem really
Yeah.
happy in your job right now. You said that you did some research when you were at Goucher. What kind of research were you doing? If you can tell us, I don't
Yeah.
know if it's like
Yeah.
secretive, but
So in the physical chemistry lab, I did research with amyloid fibril formation. So we used insulin as kind of a protein model to study the kinetics of the reaction. So for anybody who's not involved, essentially we forced a protein to fold the wrong way and studied how quickly it did that, because amyloid, which is what happens in Alzheimer's dementia, as well as in like Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease or mad cow disease, when one protein folds in that wrong way, it causes a bunch of other proteins to do it. So it's autocatalytic. So we were looking at those kinetics and then seeing if we could make a molecule, a porphyrin molecule, to slow it down or affect it. So
my econ brain probably got every 2 or 3 words you were talking about, but it sounds very interesting, very cool, very
yeah,
hands-on. I'm glad you got to have that kind of experience while you're at Goucher, because I
yeah,
feel like that's something not a lot of undergrads get the chance to do, is have their hands in that kind of research.
yeah.
So did any of that apply to med school? Because I feel like med school is a lot more people oriented, but did you still use some of that information and like the ability to do that research and to study in that way?
I actually did. I carried forward in research a lot after Goucher, and I think the ability at Goucher, where classes are small and you have a really good connection with your professors as mentors, really helped me go forward. So actually, in medical school, I took a year out after my second year of medical school and did a research fellowship with the Howard Hughes Foundation, and did some primary bench work there too in an immunology lab. Which again, nothing to do with palliative care, but it was something I enjoyed. And I think it was just kind of building those research skills, which is something I still use now.
Very cool. So I'm obviously not a medical person. Can you explain to me and maybe some of the other non-medical viewers sort of what palliative care is and maybe sort of what you do in your role? So I know you said you're the only palliative care doctor, which kind of makes you the medical director. But what are some of the roles that come with that title and that type of care?
So you're not alone in not knowing what palliative care does. I explain it to my mom regularly. So palliative care is a type of medicine that we kind of look at the whole picture of a patient. So it's a specialty, but not in the sense that like cardiologists focus on hearts or surgeons focus on whatever part of the body that they specialize in the surgery of. We're really focused on how is the whole wellness of that person going, and how do we make sure that the care plan that we're making fits the goals of that patient. So what we call goal concordant care. So before we do a surgery or procedure, we want to make sure it's going to bring that patient to where they want to be and get them the quality of life that they're hoping to have. The other big part of palliative care, and I think probably the part that people are a little bit more familiar with, is end of life care. So we help patients as they've gone through a significant illness or disease all the way through the end of life and through potentially a transition to hospice or kind of final days care. And so I got into that because in my time as a hospitalist, I realized that I was spending a lot of time talking to my patients and their families about, really, are we doing the right thing? Is this what you want to do? Should we do this procedure or this surgery? And what are you going to get from it? And I felt like I was using so much of my day using that. As much as I love being a hospitalist, it was sort of preventing me from doing my other tasks. So I did my training in palliative and now run a department where what we do is help all the other services, the cardiologists, the surgeons, the orthopedic doctors, talk to our patients about what their goals are, kind of setting a realistic expectation of what their illness means, which I think is a hard thing, because as you get more training and education, even as you've studied economics, you probably say a sentence to me and I micro, I vaguely know something about that. In medicine, we're really good at making up our own words, and it's hard to relate that to patients. So we kind of go and translate to them, this is what it means. How do we do the right thing for you? What that looks like in my day is seeing patients, and now in the era of COVID, mostly talking to their families on the phone, unfortunately, and not having them at the bedside, but spending a lot of time just communicating. So talking to them, figuring out what life is like for them, what support they have, and helping them kind of understand the information they're getting from the other medical doctors, and together putting together a plan. So it's a lot of meetings, and spending time just communicating and talking with people, which is
So do you
really
like
nice.
then that communication aspect, the talking, the meeting with? I have a friend that's going into healthcare field, and what he's really concerned about is, especially you're working in palliative care, so you do have a little bit of end of life care, and you see people go through like pretty degenerative diseases. How do you cope with sort of that like not negativity in your workplace, but something that can be emotionally draining? Like how do you
Yeah.
control that in your personal life and make sure that you're still overall like happy and taking care of yourself mentally?
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing, certainly in medicine, but for everyone right now, right? We have to be mindful of our own wellness and our self-care. I think for me, because a lot of people think, oh, palliative, that's a really sad field. I try to focus on the parts of palliative that are really meaningful to me. So helping people have good end of life care, making sure people are being heard and understanding. And that brings me a lot of fulfillment. And then the other part is finding those other avenues that really bring you joy. So my two kids, spending time with them, just running around and playing is really important. And making sure I'm taking time to focus on things for myself and things that bring me joy. It's hard because you got a lot to balance in your everyday life. But it's the part that you have to do so that you can keep taking care of everyone else.
Yeah, I'm glad you found an avenue to be able to do that and make yourself happy. And also, you mentioned that this has been especially hard during COVID, and it's something that we're all doing a little bit. But also, you mentioned that you're sort of caring for patients and talking to their families remotely. How has that added a challenge to your current work? Has it changed a lot? Is it
Yeah.
making your work significantly different? Talk a little, if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
So I would say my job changed dramatically when in February, hospitals started restricting visitors for COVID. So in palliative medicine, it's really important. So we have our medical team, but I always talk to patients about their team. So their family, their loved ones, their friends, whoever is that support system they have, we need them to be part of this decision too, because we take care of you in the hospital, and then those people are helping to take care of you and carry things forward when you go home. Um, when we had them at the bedside, it was great. So we could all communicate, be on the same page. The patients had that person there to help support them through sometimes really dark, difficult days in the hospital where they're uncomfortable or they're going through scary procedures. They had their loved ones and their support system there. And right now we don't have that, certainly to the same extent. It's changed a lot of the communication too, because we're humans. Right now we're on video, right? So we can see each other's nonverbal cues. I can see when you nod along or that you're understanding what I'm talking about. Talking to somebody over the phone, particularly about something complicated or something that's really emotionally laden, is really different, because now I don't know if they're silent because they're thinking and weighing the options, or because it was too emotional and they had to step away for a minute, or did my line disconnect, which has happened on more than one occasion where I am talking to dead air and I don't know it. And so you're losing that bit of communication and that human touch, right? Somebody cries, you want to be able to respond and to acknowledge that emotion, and it's hard to do now. And so it's definitely made the job more challenging. And I'll say in some ways it's harder personally for myself, because I feel like I can't do that to the full extent. I can't be as supportive and the best communicator that I want to be because of the restrictions we have.
That sounds really unfortunate. That is sort of what it's had to come to because of COVID, that you're having to communicate. But at least there are some ways, like you said, the video chat, you still get some of the responses, not like necessarily just listening to dead air. So that is a positive out of that, which is good.
Yeah.
But still like a big change, and especially a big change with how you considered your career when you got into this type of medicine.
Yeah. I don't think most people, maybe some people predicted this was coming, but I certainly didn't have it on my radar that this year was going to be so different.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. So you have gotten pretty lucky in the fact that you've made some of these last minute decisions and it's worked out really well for you. Was there anything you did at Goucher, like maybe mentors you had, or other than your research programs that you were a part of, that you think really helped you with getting into this position and being able to thrive in this position?
Yeah, I think actually I had a lot of mentors at Goucher. It's a really wonderful place to make connections. Some of them were certainly peer mentors. So I was an RA for 3 years at Goucher, and the RA community was really wonderful in supporting everybody and kind of where we all hope to go and grow. Like a lot of my fellow RAs, I don't think they're called RAs anymore.
Yeah, they are.
They
Like
are,
in the
okay.
dorms?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
They
think
were
they're still
changing.
called RAs.
Okay. They had changed the name a little bit at one point, and it was something else, and I just remember that. a lot of them were going into like higher ed positions and things like that, but just kind of supporting each other through that. And we even still follow up now, which is nice, to still have that community. And then in the science department itself, so not just my research mentors, but Dr. Delahunty, who I think retired a few years ago. He was a biology professor. His wife had been an economics professor. I took her class too. So
That's
he
very
kind
cool
of,
to be able to take both of their stuff.
yeah. And they had different last names. I didn't know they were married for like the longest time. But he kind of helped guide where I wanted to go and supported me through the idea of thinking through, is medicine the right thing for me? Is this the way I want to approach it? Which was really helpful because I don't come from a family that has a lot of background. I was the first person to go to college in my family. And so it was kind of a daunting thing to think about, not just college and graduation, but then to move on from that. So there were a lot of really good supports and people that were willing to help and offer resources and thoughts.
I'm glad you had those great mentors. That sounds awesome. And I didn't know that there were some of those connections at Goucher between the econ and the biology department. But the other thing you just mentioned that you're the first person in your family to go to college. And I'm also a first generation student, so I definitely understand that. What were some of the challenges, especially with entering not only undergraduate, but medical school? And sort of how did you find a way to overcome those in something you didn't necessarily have family that could help you through?
Yeah. I think for me, my whole life, I'd been focused on college. It was something I knew I wanted to do, even though it wasn't something that had a strong history in my family. I got fortunate that I actually went to college as a high school student for a dance company. My high school dance company had a regional meeting at Goucher, and that's when I first saw the campus and kind of fell in love. I think for me, the hardest part was not understanding like the whole system. So I applied, I was really excited to go there. And then after my first year, I kind of panicked and almost transferred because I was concerned about finances and student loans. And then I talked to the financial aid office and people at Goucher, and they kind of helped me figure out how to go through and do it kind of in the best way that I could. And I think letting people know if you have concerns or problems, even if you don't know the right person to talk to, somebody will help you get there. Similarly, when I went to medical school, I don't know how I knew so little about it going in. I had a vague idea that it was 4 years, but didn't know much more than that. Finding people who, just acknowledging, hey, I'm not really familiar with this. Can you talk to me about it? And then where I went to medical school at Maryland, they matched the first year med students with a third year med student. So you kind of have a big sibling to kind of walk you through, and just being very honest of, I don't really know what the next steps are. What am I supposed to do here? And then just seeking information wherever you can, interest groups. I went to so many meetings. In med school, you go to meetings because there's free meals for all the interest groups. So it's like, I don't have any money. I'm going to go because I have pizza. I'm not sure I'm interested, but I'll just hear about it. And then you learn all these things that you're like, wow, those are a lot of opportunities that I didn't even know were here.
That's awesome. I definitely relate to going to meetings simply because there's food there. I've certainly done that at Goucher. I get that. But I'm glad you've had both the faculty and the peer resources, both at Goucher and at UMD, to be able to make those connections and figure out sort of how you're getting to where you're getting. And that's really awesome.
Yeah.
You said you did some research. Did you happen to do like any kind of internships? Did you have the chance to study abroad? Did you do anything sort of outside of Goucher's sphere while you were there?
Yeah. So I think when I was there, they had just made the requirement, this is going to make me sound a little old. They had just made the requirement of study abroad or do an internship. Like it was new, I think, for my graduating class. And I actually did go abroad. There's not a lot of those opportunities in the sciences, or it's a little bit more difficult to fit it in. But I went to Romania with the chemistry department to study silicate chemistry, so like glass and chemistry, which was really cool. Also very fortuitous that we went to Romania before they joined the EU, so the exchange rate was amazing.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. It was only for 3 weeks, but it was really neat. And it was my first time really going abroad, so it was a really special experience for me. And I was really glad to be able to do that. I think the other things that I took advantage of when I was at Goucher was I don't remember the name of the shuttle that goes to all the different campuses, the College Connector or something.
Yeah, something. College Town Shuttle, College Connector. It has a few
Something like
different
that.
names at this point.
So I took that regularly to go to the other campuses, just to check out their events and things that were going on. I didn't wind up, I think, taking any courses off campus, but it was something where I enjoyed pretty much anything that was going on somewhere else. If my friends and I found out about it, we'd go. Went to a lot of plays at Hopkins and multicultural days at Towson. And
That's very cool. I didn't really know that you could see. I knew that you could take classes at the other colleges, but I didn't know that you could get into some of their events, which is very cool. And I think definitely
yeah,
something more Goucher students should take advantage of, obviously, once we're all back on campus and able to experience that kind of life.
yeah.
But I'm glad you got to do that. Were you part of any other organizations on at Goucher? Like, where I don't know if chemistry has any specific departments or biology does. Um,
Chemistry, I think, has the longest continuously running club on campus. It's well over when I was there, it was over 100 years old. So I was the president or vice president. I don't remember. I was a position on the chemistry club, and then I was the vice president for the biology club. I had a lot of jobs on campus. So I was a note taker, a scribe, a tutor. I worked in the events office in the Crosshair Auditorium, which was great because I got to see a lot of things there too. Um, I love that the BSO comes or the Baltimore Chamber Orchestra comes and plays at Goucher, which is really fun. And then the wiffle ball club, is there still a wiffle ball club?
I think there might be. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've signed up for clubs.
So we started the wiffle ball club when we were there, the Sandlot Wiffle Ball Club, and we played twice a week on the quad. I actually, and this is a slightly embarrassing story, broke my collarbone playing wiffle ball. Not from the bat or the ball, but from another player. We were so excited that we just ran into each other.
Well,
But
I mean, that's one great memory to make on the quad.
yes, it was, I think anything I could participate in, I tried to. I tried out to be Mortimer, the mascot, once. So
You were very, very involved at Goucher. That's amazing to
I
hear
loved
and
it.
to see that that's been so helpful for you moving forward and out of Goucher. Is there any sort of like last minute things you recommend for students at this time, especially like
Yeah.
amidst COVID or maybe considering since being home, like maybe a change in what they're thinking about pursuing? You like from your switch to econ to medical, it, there's got to be some advice you have for students who are kind of
Yeah.
trying to navigate that situation right now.
So one thing I would say is definitely be open to other opportunities. So if there's a course and a discipline that you're not in, feel free to take it and just explore, right? There's no wrong time to try something new. And you might find that that's something you really like, or maybe you can partner it with what you're already doing to make kind of a dual pathway. Um, the other thing I would say is if you're trying something and even though you love it, it just doesn't feel like the right fit, that's okay. It's okay to change your mind many times over. Certainly, one day you want to get enough credit so that you can graduate in one field, but switching paths is something that I think people are afraid to do because they don't want to lose progress. But sometimes switching paths is the way to make the best way forward for yourself. One other thing I want to say is as a science major with just an undergrad degree, I didn't know how to navigate the career field before I went to med school. And the career development office was actually really critical to me because I had a hard time finding a job right out of Goucher with just a BA in biology. And they actually showed me that there are scientific temp agencies and helped me get a job at a pharmaceutical company for a year, which was really great. So Goucher continues to give, guys. It will be your resource for a lifetime.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because, yeah, we do aim, and now we're even a little more developed with our career communities, which I hope you're a part of. If not, I can send you a link after that to
Okay.
get involved in those and get some updates on the field and help students, I guess, connect to alums in some of those fields
Yeah.
as well, which we'd love to get you connected to more students and have you help mentor them if you're interested in that. Um,
Yeah.
but we do try to help anyone that's leaving Goucher find a career in what they're interested in, even if it's something temporary, like you mentioned before going to med school. So I'm glad that you mentioned our office in that.
Yeah.
But if there's anything last minute you wanted to add before I go, feel
Well,
free.
just good luck to everybody. I know this year is really a challenge, but I think you're in a community that's really tightly connected and tightly bound. So even off campus, just knowing that Goucher. Now it's in a very expanded bubble, probably internationally expanded bubble with everybody at home. But I think that Goucher connection and the people you get to know there are yours for life, which is really important right now when you need as much help and support as you can get.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you again so much for joining us, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or anything I can help you with.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope everybody has a good day.
Have a great one.
Bye.